I kind of recreated everything back up to the point that we were. If it looks a little bit different, then now you know why. Let's go back into our main program here, and right down here I'm just going to come over to math. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because this is not a PLC programming lecture. This is an HMI lecture. So let's go ahead and create our familiar val 1, val 2, and val 3. And those are all going to be global ints. So let's define them as such. So global memory, int, define. Okay, yep, you're going to jump around on me. That's fine. And global memory, define. Last one, guys. Let's define it. Okay, so there we go. I'm just going to, anytime I update one of these values, it should automatically update value 3. So I'm not putting any kind of, conditions here that it's only going to run once in a while or anything. I'm just doing this very sloppy because I want this lecture to focus on HMI. So let's go back in here and let's start setting up some controls. So I'm going to start with this first one here under elements. That's an IO field. And let's go ahead and make this kind of big and obnoxious. I just feel like being a little bit cheesy, okay? So process, let's come down here, and for tag, actually I haven't created my tags in the HMI yet. So let's come down here to our default tag table, and we need to add those val 1, val 2, and val 3. So those are going to be ints tied to our PLC, and we can go ahead and just punch those all in. So val 1, 2, 3, all ints, all on the PLC, and we can just select those very quickly by typing the first letter in, getting prompted, and taking what it gives us. Okay, so now we've got our values here, and we can go back to our screen, and I'm going to click on this, and let's come down here to text format, and that's 160, or that's 16-point font. I bet we could get away with something pretty obnoxious. So yeah, let's try some 100-point. Okay, that looks pretty good. Alignment, I'm going to center that. Okay, that looks fine. So I'm going to, let's go back to general, and this is set as mode input output. And yeah, I think that's fine. Let's go ahead and leave that input output, and we'll change the last one of these that we make, and that will be output only. So we've got 3 of these here, and just space that out a little bit. And I need to set some tags here, so let's try again. Now we've got our value 1. Come down here, that's going to be value 2. This one's going to be value 3, and the mode is going to be output. Okay, the format is decimal. We like the format pattern, leading zeros. So I think we've got this thing pretty much the way that we want it. So let's go ahead and put it on a string, throw it on the air, and see if it takes flight. First thing I'm going to do is save, because I don't want TIA Portal crashing on me again. Let's go ahead and start simulation. And actually, we don't even have our PLC running yet, so this isn't going to work. But while that's running, let's go ahead and come back into our main, and let's start our simulation. So yes, it's going to disable everything else, and once that comes up, we'll be able to just close it, and about that time, by the time the simulator's all loaded and running, we can reload our screen and everything should be fine. since everything kind of takes a long time anyway, it doesn't really matter. So, okay, there's our screen. Let's just go ahead and exit. Looks like our fonts might be too big, but that's okay. We'll work on that. Let's load. And we want to go ahead and start the module. Finish. Okay. And we can go online and monitor just for fun, even though we don't really need to. So, where is it? I don't see our monitoring. There's our monitoring. Okay, val 1, 2, and 3 are all zeros. Now let's come down here and start simulation. Don't show that again. I'm not interested. Although what I can do, I can just right click on this main. And when you have 10 screens or so, the program needs to know where to start. So I can come down here to main and just click define as start screen. So then, it knows anytime I load up the application, that's what's supposed to be started and running. So once this thing gets loaded, we should be able to send a number or two into our PLC and get a number back out. And that's kind of the mission here. Yep, we can see we got a little crazy on our font size, not a problem. I clicked on that, and let's just type something like 1200. And, oops, I didn't hit enter. So 1200, enter. And there we go. It's adding 1200 to 0 and getting 1200. And I'll just type 300 there. And there we go. It's adding 300 to 1200 and it's getting 1500 back. So great. That works. Let's exit out of there, go back to main. And yeah, obviously, when you look at this, it looks like your numbers are going to fit. But there is a difference between design view and runtime view, and I think we've confirmed that much. So text format, why don't we maybe make that 75, not 175, but 75. And vertical alignment, let's make that middle. And we'll do the same thing for these two. So 75, middle, and 75, middle. And just for fun, I can come in here to not general, I guess it would be under appearance, background, and since this is my result, maybe I make that this nice green color. That looks fine. Yeah, so let's try that. Right click, start simulation, and now we should have it looking a little bit better. We should have the font fitting on the screen, and everything should be working about the same. And after that, we can explore a couple of other elements over here, because there are a handful of different ways to get information in and out of the PLC. We're not going to go exhaustively through everything, but I would like to cover just a little bit. And I'm really just running this right now just to show you, just some tweaks, because after my PLC 3 course, I do get people messaging me saying, hey, I can't see the letters on my screen, they're too big in my button and things like that. So I would like to just make sure everybody here knows how to set those things and how to check and see if they're working. Okay, so now you can see we've got our calculator working. We've got everything formatted decently. Is it pretty? No. But is it what we wanted? Yes. So let's exit out of there. And we don't have to wait for that. We can come right over here into our second screen. And let's work with our calculator still, but let's do something a little bit different. So let's come over here and pull in a list box. And let's expand that. And what do we want to do with this list box? Well, we're going to set values there. We're also going to set some values here. So let's see if we can just align these two and make them kind of about the same size. I do want it to look kind of good, all right? And let's pull in one more, and we'll maybe, use a gauge. And you know what? I'm feeling good today, so I also want to go ahead and bring in a slider, all right? So let's see how we can format this slider and get it looking good. Well, the first thing I want to do is I think I want to work with 3 numbers on my add. So let's come down here and add another, and that'll just be val4. Right click, define tag. That'll be global memory int define. Okay, and let's go ahead and just push that into the PLC now so we don't forget to do it later. Good. Okay, so now we're adding 3 numbers here, and we're going to need that tag in the PLC as well. I mean, in the HMI as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Val4, val4, and you see we just made a program change and added a tag in 2 places. And I think it took us like 30 seconds or less. So you can really do these kinds of changes pretty quick here. Now let's come in here to this slider and let's start working on it. So we're going to have, right now it's set for 0 to 100, and I think I'm really good with those values. And let's come down here and process tag. We're going to associate that with val4. And we don't need tags for minimum and maximum because this control is not going to be dynamic. It's going to be static, and it's always going to have the same values. So no problem there. The only other thing I think I want to change in here is let's scroll down, and you see that label that says semantic. I don't need that label. I don't want a label, so I'm just going to delete that. And okay, now we have no label. So now we have a little bit more, real estate on the inside of our label. And you see down at the bottom, it's showing right here the value that's actually selected. So, that's pretty cool. Let's come over here to our gauge, and we're going to work on that some. So I think I want that to go all the way up to 1,000. My process tag is going to be val3. And once again, I've got this title in there. I'm certain that I don't want that. And then I've got a scale gradation of 10. Let's make that 100. Okay, so now we're counting by hundreds instead. And if I wanted to and just make it a little cleaner, I could do that by 250. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I think that's exactly what I want that to look like. Let's come back to these guys and let's set these up. So the process here, this is going to be our val1. And labels, we're going to have a few different entries here. So let's go ahead and give ourselves, about 5 different options. And those will be 111, 222, 333, 444. Whoops, too many 4s and not enough 3s, man. That's not good. Okay, and 555. So that's the text of these. So now that I've got those values, let's come over here to text format, and we're going to center align, and we definitely want to bump that up maybe around, 30. That might be good. Actually, 30 looks a little big. Let's try 20. I bet 20 will work. So 20, yeah, 20's fine. And okay, I think that's decent. Now, the only other thing is, for the values that this thing produces, it looks like it only produces values of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if that's the case, I really want to use these numbers here. So we might have to handle that in events, or we might have to handle that logically. Not a problem though. Let's come over here, and now we want to work with our val2. So let's plug that in. And same thing, we've got a few different values, so let's go ahead and give ourselves 5. And here we'll just, we'll keep things simple. We'll have 150, 250, 350, 450, and 550. Okay? And same thing, it's only going to, give us values of 1 through 5. Not cool. We should be able to change those, but that's okay. It's going to give us something a little bit limited, but we're going to try to work around it anyway. And okay, there we go. So that's going to give us another type of control. And let's go ahead and run this up and see where we're at right now. So I believe our PLC is still running and still has a valid program in there. Let's go ahead and start simulation on our screen. And let's see where our second screen has got us. I probably should have already saved the project and I didn't. Hopefully TIA won't crash on me and hopefully I won't lose everything. It does seem to be a little bit more crashy when you're working with HMI. So it tends to freeze when you're working with PLC and it tends to just crash when you're working with HMI. Let's see here. Okay, that's where we're at. Let's go to our second page, and sure enough, you can see here that we've got our math working. And let's change views on our screen. Let's go to the main. There we go. So now, we can see what's actually going in and what's actually coming out. And when we click on these things, you see we dropped our value because these are only putting out a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5. They're not actually putting out what we want. And same thing for this. See, this works a little bit differently. I can click and select from a drop down, and here on this slider I can drag that up and adjust our value like that. So right now we've got some things working kind of in a way that we don't want them working. And we're going to have to throw in some logic to deal with that. You can see val 3 down here. I can set that from 0 to 100. So that's working. But these other two controls, they're only able to give us out 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So that's not a problem. Watch this. We'll come over here into main. And that's one of those things that, when your HMI is limited, you just have to compensate for it in your program. There's just no other way around that. So let's come over here, and I'm just going to multiply val 1 by 111, and I'm going to store that as temp val 1. So temp TV1 define, and I'm just going to go ahead and make that a local temp. And perfect. Let's define it. And that TV1 is now going to be what I put here instead of val 1. And now that I've got that multiply block, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to give myself a calculate block. And I need 3 figures. So I need val 1 coming in. And I'm going to need 100. And I'm going to need 50. And my equation here, my calculation, let's double click on that. It's going to be N1 times 100 plus N3. Whoops, not 100, that's N2. Forgot about that. Okay, so that should set my value. That's going to be TV2. Right click, define tag, local temp int, and that's going to be what comes in here instead of val 2. And obviously all 3 things on this rung is not what we want. So we're going to have our val 1 right there. We're going to have our And actually this is supposed to be val 2, not val 1. So we're going to have our val 2 right here. And then we're going to have our add block. Let's just put one more rung down here and drag this down. Okay, now we've got some good code. Let's run it up, put it into the PLC. Everything will compile just fine. It's easy logic. Come down here so we can see that. And now watch what happens. Let's go ahead and click 222 here. Oh, that popped it up. Let's click 150 there. That popped up. And we can run this all the way up to 100. Now we've got 100, we've got 150, and we've got 222. And those are the values that we wanted to get. We just couldn't do it in the controls themselves, but that's okay. We were still able to get it done. And you see I'm sending analog in, I'm getting analog out. I can use a slider to control it. I can display it on a gauge, come back to my main, and you see this is looking at val 1 and val 2 still. So, we're seeing kind of some strange math going over here, but, we can still set values over here, even if they don't work quite the way we would expect them to anymore. So let's put 1 and 1, there we go. And we get a 361 out, and when we come back over here to our second, you see everything's adjusted accordingly. So there we go.